Today, we have a friend of mine, Jeremy Howell. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man. So, why don't we take the next 60 to 90 seconds and you just let the audience know who you are and what you do?
Jeremy Howell with Impact Value Coaching. So I have two different sides to my coaching practice. I have the business side where I focus on systems and processes, leadership development, up to 40 areas of impact, different strategies I use in different areas. And also have the lifestyle coaching, which who doesn't want a better lifestyle, right? So I really focus on the things that you do want. And a lot of times we focus on things that we don't want. So I help you basically pull out the things that you do want for your life, and I put it into a beautiful visual prayer, is what I call it. It's like a guided meditation. And then we reverse engineer that visualization into daily small steps to get you there.
Wonderful. So, let's unpack some of this stuff. And then I definitely want to ask some questions about the visual prayer stuff because that sounds fascinating to me. So, the first thing that really hits me, it's the lifestyle and leadership coaching. They can go together. But how did you get into that? Like, what were some of the things that got you into this particular flavor of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the business coaching mainly came from my own experiences of ownership. It almost broke me, right? Being a business owner of an assisted living facility, and that's 24-hour care for elderly and disabled folks. Me and my wife opened that in 2013. And by 2015, I was almost completely burnout. I hit rock bottom, basically. And everybody's rock bottom looks different. And mine didn't look like drugs or alcohol or women or gambling. It was business ownership. So what I did was mainly it wasn't me that I hit rock bottom because I watched my best friend, my wife, hit her rock bottom because she wore it completely different. The stress, she was losing her hair, she was losing sleep at night, anxiety ridden. It was pretty bad, even to the point where I seen her instantly get hives all over her chest off of a call that she got that she perceived to be bad. She instantly broke out in hives. And I thought to myself on that day, I'm like, hold on, God, I just seen this manifest on her skin so fast. She didn't even know that it was a bad phone call. She just perceived it to be a bad phone call, which it was not a bad phone call, by the way. She just perceived it that way. And it really woke me up to, hang on, I've got to change this. I've got to grab the steering wheel. So what I did was I basically called out to God when I hit my rock bottom. I was driving home one night, and that's what I did for our business. Was I was a driver. I drove all over the place here in Northeast Florida for our people. So some of those days were 16-hour days. And one long day, I was heading back home, and I cried out to God. I said, God, I can't do this no more. You need to show me why I'm doing this, because this is not what you intended for our life. And so you made a statement. You're like, these two go hand in hand. So my lifestyle and my business was a wreck. Same with my wife. My wife was not living the life that she thought she was going to have when we opened this business. It was the furthest thing from it. And this is what my passion is now, is to help business owners gain freedom, because we all open these businesses thinking that we have this in mind, this lifestyle that is going to provide for us. And then we get into the business, and then that business grabs a hold of us and it doesn't let go. And the truth is, if you find the right people, they can help you out of these situations.
So this brings up a great amount of questions for me. You have a lot we can unpack here. And I think the first one that really hits me is, how did you know you were at rock bottom?
Like I said, when I seen my wife going what she was going through, it wears on a man, at least a good husband. It's going to wear on a man in a way that, because I carry stress differently. I could be strong. I can lift up things, and it might stress the body a little bit, but that kind of stress I actually enjoy. But watching somebody that you care about go through something that you feel helpless on is a totally different stress. So when I hit that rock bottom, it was on that drive home. Like I was carrying it really strong until that moment. And I got that, I guess, that quiet moment alone with God. I just emptied my heart out, man. I emptied my heart out. I wept. Like when I asked God, I was like, God, you got to help me. God showed up. Like the Holy Spirit entered that vehicle. And it wasn't just, oh, maybe it was this or that. No, it was God. And he set me on fire. I'm still on fire to this day. I'm still on fire to this day. What I asked of him, I said, God, I can't do this no more. I'm not happy. My family's not happy. Give me eyes to see. Give me ears to hear. Light my path. I'm asking you for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. I didn't know what I was asking for. I had no clue what I just asked God for, but I knew that I was doing it from the heart.
So let me take a moment to talk to the listeners for 1 second. So if you're here and you're listening and you are not a Christian, I do want you to know from a Christian perspective, we do believe that God is real and his presence does show up. So when you hear somebody speaking about God showed up or God did this thing, it's because as a Christian, we do believe that God's presence is real. So I wanted to speak to you, to the non-Christian, just to let you know we see you as well, and that, as we go further in the episode, you're going to get a lot from this, but I want you to just listen to what's being said and understand that from a non-Christian perspective, it may seem weird, but from a Christian perspective, this is everyday life. Let's jump back into the conversation. So rock bottom, we're praying, we're calling out to God. God shows up. I really like how you're focused on you had the stress, but it wasn't until you watched what your wife was going through that really was what broke you. And I really like how you brought that out and the vulnerability of that. So then this brings up some interesting questions for me. How long did you wait until you did something? This was probably a process going on for a while, but what was the process? Was it the hives that finally said, that's it, I'm enough, it's enough, we're doing something? Or did you just wait to see? Walk us through that.
So that was what I did was I cried out to God. Like I didn't know where else to turn. I
Right.
didn't going through it because when you're a business owner, you're a doer at
Right.
first, right? And so we were doing so much that it was hard for me to, at least in my mind, to turn to the right person because I didn't know who to turn to. And that's actually the kind of person I try to be now, is that person that I didn't have back then. So
Right.
that's my heart. I don't have to do coaching, right? I do coaching because I am looking for those people that are in that same situation, or at least similar situations, that they want to gain clarity and freedom and order in their business. That's what it's designed for.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I would say where I actually pivoted to where I was like, oh, I'm actually going to start acting on this was instantly when I cried out to God and the Holy Spirit showed up. I was weeping, and it wasn't weeping like I was upset. I was weeping because I actually felt God for the first time. I was
Mm.
raised a Christian, and this is for the non-Christian listeners as well. Down, I knew there was a God, and I believed in Jesus, but it wasn't really prevalent in my life. And what God's waiting on for us to do, He never leaves us, right? He's
Mm.
waiting for us to hit that moment where it's I'm all yours, and that's what I did that day. And the result of that was he gave me the knowledge, he gave me the wisdom, and he gave me the understanding. Not all at once, not all at once. I heard audible.com loud and clear.
Mm.
And I don't care if people think I'm crazy. That's the cool part about this is that people sometimes will be like, nah, man, that sounds crazy. That's fine for you. I know what I heard and I know what I
Right.
started doing. Instantly started basically gaining my freedom back. So
Mm.
audible.com, I've heard of that before. I was like, never had a desire to listen to any kind of books. And even when I showed up home that afternoon, it was actually late evening, I showed up, my wife was cooking dinner, and I come in, I'm still weeping. And
Mm.
I told her, she didn't know what was going on. She thought I got in a wreck. She was like, what happened? Like, what are you hurt? She's never seen me weep before. So I come in and I'm like, listen, God told me audible.com. So I'm downloading audible.com. And I even did the paid part. Like I got all kinds of credits, and instantly God started showing me books that I needed to listen to.
That's
And
good, man.
some of these books as well, because I believe that I listened to over 250 books pretty quick within a 3 or 4 year period. And
So for the listener too, and this is something in leadership we talk about, a lot of your freedom come from the right people, the right places, and the right books. And so I really appreciate you bringing that out. So let me ask you this question. Do you feel that during that time you have basically became a workaholic during the burnout time? Is that safe to say, or was that not a
oh
thing?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so workaholic, did you find that you were trying to make something work long after it was dead with the businesses? Like after the time has passed, after maybe God's anointing on it was gone or whatever, did you find that you were trying to stay loyal to the idea until the breaking point? Like what was going through your head during that time?
So that's a really good question. So the business was actually thriving, but what was happening was me and my wife were carrying all the weight. Mainly
Okay.
my wife, and I wrote a book. It's right here. right above my head here. It's a book with Brian Tracy. And my portion of that book is called Too Many Hats for One Head.
Right.
It's my story about that I tell about my wife and how we gained freedom. My wife was wearing all the hats. I wore a few of them, right? Because I'm her husband and I was trying to carry the weight with her. But what I had to do was slowly take those hats off her and put it on the right people. Once I started learning through these books that I was listening to that God was pushing me towards, even books that I would argue with God. Listen to this. I would argue with God. No, I'm not listening to that book. I know the author and he's says the F word every 2 minutes. And God would have that pop up and highlight it to me. And people think I'm crazy. I don't care. But he would highlight books to me. Like somebody just highlighted it with a lighter, like it would glow. Right. And I would argue. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm arguing with God. Like, no, I'm not listening to that. But he would always bring it back up and show it to me. Right. And whenever we would listen to those books, especially those books that were secular, they were not, they had nothing to do with God, but they had the principles in it. They had the strategies or the methods that I needed for my business.
That's really good. So let's take a pause for a second. Just for the listener who is not watching this on YouTube or the video version of this, what's the name of the book with Brian Tracy?
Okay, Winning Strategies for Success.
Winning Strategies for Success. And to the listener, we will put all this in the show notes for you to do it. But I want to make sure that we honor you who may not be watching the YouTube version of this, which is video. If you want to go to that, leadwithjim.live, take you right to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and then watch the video version of this podcast. Other than that, to the listeners, we just want to acknowledge you and just check the show notes, grab the book. And your chapter was called Wearing Too Many Hats, right?
Too Many Hats for One Head.
Too many hats for one head. So make sure you check that out and connect with our speaker, Jeremy. So here's what's an interesting question that really just hits me with this. And I know I'm guilty. I know many of our listeners are guilty of this, of wearing too many hats. When you start taking these hats off, how do you determine which ones to keep?
Only the ones you want.
Okay.
That's the beauty, right? Only the ones that you feel like your talents, gifts, and abilities and your desire. So through this journey, I found that my wife was egotistical, right? We all are. And I'm just
to some extent we are. Yeah, no, it's good.
I'm picking on my wife, but she would tell herself things. And I had to coach her through this. Like she was my first coaching client and we didn't even know it. I was coaching her. I would try to take a hat off and she would snatch it back. I would hire out for this and then she would go kick him out of the way and then do it anyways. And I had to show her, like, listen, just because you can do it good doesn't mean that somebody else can't do it better. Because when you wear all the hats, it's hard for you to be good at any one of those roles. So the hats meaning roles, right? So if you're wearing all the hats and you're spread so thin, no wonder you're so stressed because you're trying to juggle all these different roles that really, if she would say things like this, we can't afford employees. Through my journey, I found employees make you money. Yes, they're a liability. They're seen as a liability, but they make you money. If they don't make you money, then you didn't properly set that role in place. Does that make sense? Like they should be making you money, duplicating you. And you don't, how I came across this, by the way, Jim, being a systems guy, like actually being known as a systems guy. I'm known for a few things, but one of them, like one of the first things that people started recognizing me for was this guy's really good at systems. And if you know anything about systems and business, systems set you free. I actually went to Peru on a missions trip. Now, me and my wife were missions directors for a number of years. And that was my first place I actually did boots on the ground, just me and my family, just to see the mission base and to come back and report about who we were supporting in our congregation. So I went there, didn't even really know why I was there besides just to put boots on the ground.
Right.
I feel like I was in the way. I don't speak Spanish. And I was about maybe 3 days in, and they did their Sunday service. Excellent service, by the way. Praise and worship was out of the world. And I didn't understand a word of it, except for I knew they were praising Jesus. But the missionary came in. I was in his house sipping coffee. I felt like I was in the way, for real. Like I was in his space. But he came in and he slapped his computer down. And he said, Jeremy, Holy Spirit said, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, about? He said, I got a lot of chaos here. And I said, I noticed, but I don't like giving unsolicited advice. And he said, yeah. So Holy Spirit said, you can help me with that. I said, yeah, I can help you with that. So we went through and I created a really quick worksheet on how to create systems. And this missionary just actually left my house a couple of days ago. He comes here and stays now whenever he's in the States. Give him a pad to crash in. But anyways, so that helped his business or his ministry run like a business.
Mm,
And I showed him that it's the same thing. Business and ministry are a mirror. The only difference is that you have paid employees and you have volunteers.
okay.
You know, and that's the biggest thing. But that also sprouted a leadership development type conversation with him, that he started actually raising up the leaders the right way. And he thought he
Right.
was doing all this. He thought he was delegating. He wasn't. I told him, I said, one of your biggest problems is you're not delegating,
Right.
because you're on the phone and this person's talking in your ear this way and this person's pulling you in this direction. You're putting this fire out and you're putting that fire out. You can't do that. You're wearing too many hats.
Right.
And you got all these people that are willing.
So then this brings back to full circle to the conversation about the too many hats. What are the signs that we can look for that we are wearing in too many hats? What are those signs? What are some things we can look for?
Burnout is one of the biggest ones.
Okay.
Chaos. And this is something biblical too. God doesn't operate in chaos. God is a God of order. So once things are orderly, clean, and in place, and systems are working the right way, you're going to work the right way.
Right.
If you're stressed, if you're worried, if you feel like you have too much on your plate and not enough helpers, like these are all signs that you might need a coach. You might need somebody, and not just any coach. Like, you should do your due diligence. Like, you should find somebody that's been there and actually done that. I know a lot of business coaches that never ran a business. That it baffles me. Hold on. Sure. Some of this is just strategy, right? Strategy is not my strong point. I know a lot of strategy. The strong point is that I've been there and done that. I know what it feels like, and I've seen it from beginning to end numerous times. If as a business coach, I think you should actually do it for yourself. This is my 7th business coaching.
Oh, wow.
It's my 7th business. Every business that I do as well is multi-directional. So I don't just do coaching. I do retreats, right? And coaching itself has many different aspects of it. Group coaching, I got flash coaching, one-on-one coaching. And then I also have a membership that I call Moxie Tribe for entrepreneurs and just people that want a better lifestyle, that want to connect. So there's aspects of it, is what I'm saying. And it's the same thing we did with our assisted living. Out of that assisted living, I birthed up 3 other businesses, and one of them was a golden goose. So, like, you should, as somebody that is looking for a business coach, you should do your due diligence, ask the questions. Have you been there and done that? Show me where I should listen to you.
Right. Absolutely. So let me
I
jump in
think-
here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me jump in here for a second, because I love where you're going with the coaching, and I 100% as a coach, I recommend you get coaches. And then, of course, that is one of the biggest soapboxes I'll jump on, is if the type of coach you're hiring, make sure they've done the thing that you're asking them to do. I think that it's surprising me how many people don't have the with it all or the awareness to ask those questions. But if I'm hiring you and I'm paying you money, I want to at least know you have some success in an area that I'm hiring you for. So I want to get down to here. So with the hats, because I think this is an important part of the conversation: worry, lack of energy, overwhelm, all these things leading up to the big chaos and burnout. So let's say we're walking this journey. You've walked this journey. You've helped your wife walk this journey. So we've recognized the hats. How do we learn to let go of these hats?
That is probably the best question you've asked so far. So this was very important in my business, is to show my wife trust. If you don't, there's the 4 Ds. I don't know if some people have different versions of the 4 Ds, but I'll go over them real quick. So you develop, you delegate, you duplicate, then you disappear. So you got to develop the right people. You don't just hire somebody and say, go do that. Because what's going to happen is they're going to screw up, or they're going to make you decide everything, right? You got to develop them. You got to show them, hey, this is what I want you to do. I want you to show me. And this is what I tell people. And this is just Jeremy. But I've been very successful, and I still have my leadership do it in my businesses. As I say, as long as you do it at least 80% of how Jeremy just did it, I'll back you 100%.
I got you.
Why would I tell somebody that?
Are you asking me, or is that rhetorical? Because you paused and I was like, wait a minute. Is that a rhetorical question, or is he going somewhere?
I'm a coach. I like to ask questions, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm interviewing you. Being somebody who is also in the leadership development stage, the empowerment comes in to back off and things like that. But I was sitting there, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
So I'll go ahead and tell you, though, because I would like to hear other people's opinion of what I just said.
Right.
What would that tell you if you're my employee?
So going back, just so my mind's back into the places, if you were to get it right 80% and then back off, right? It's a statement of trust. I trust you enough to actually complete the work.
I'm trusting you to screw up, basically.
Okay.
This is what business owners don't do. They don't trust their team to screw up. They're gonna screw up, right? Let them screw up. So I have this as my non-negotiable when somebody hires me as their coach, no matter if it's lifestyle coaching or business coaching. I tell them this is non-negotiable. You have to look at the world in two different ways.
Right.
You have to, and that is lessons and blessings.
Mm-hmm.
If something good happens, thank God, show gratitude. That's a blessing. If something bad happens, you don't go and scream at your employee and say, what were you thinking? You go and you put your arm around them and say, what did you learn? The lesson. What lesson did you learn? Show me. And the reason is because when I tell somebody, what were you thinking? Because I've had that style of leadership at first. Like freak out. Oh my God. Guess what that employee will never do again? They'll never think for themselves. They're going to be afraid to make, if they stick around, they're going to be afraid to make a decision because they just got yelled at. It's a different feeling to be trusted. Okay. So trust is really close to being loved, close to that same feeling.
Right.
Build your culture, man. Build your culture. If you want a culture of people that are disobedient, that they grumble when you walk away, they do what they want to anyways, they make you decide everything. You want a team like that, or do you want a team that's going to show up and show out every day because they understand their leader trusts them, and they when they learn a lesson, by the way, less likely to repeat that mistake.
Absolutely. So let me ask you one more question. And then as we start landing the plane of this episode, so you're a pure people developer too. And you can tell that one of the things that he's letting go is, hey, do the 4D method, develop, duplicate, and all those things. But what would you say to, last question, one of two, what would you say to the person who is emotionally struggling to let the thing go?
So I come across that all the time. Emotion is nothing but energy and motion. So whatever emotion that they're feeling, I try to point them back to the opposite feeling of that motion. So you have that same energy, but you can flip it. It's a mindset shift.
Okay.
So if you're anxious, that anxious feeling is no different than excitement. So if you're anxious, tell yourself a different story and feel the same energy in that moment.
That's good.
Start getting excited. Emotions are not real as far as, and let me explain that. Is the energy real? Sure. But the story you're telling yourself can change. Aspect, it's not real. So tell yourself the better story. This goes back to lessons and blessings. The reason I say lessons and blessings is because when anybody says, oh, woe is me, hold on now, what'd you learn? And I also point out, don't skip past the blessing. Show gratitude.
Right. Yeah, I love that. The gratitude's powerful, and that's even a whole other episode on itself. So with that being said, we're coming down to the end here. You know, I ask all my listeners, and if you've been a listener for a while here on the show, you know what part of the show it is. It's the hashtag Wisdom Bomb. And make sure you go to my Facebook, Lead with Jim, put hashtag Wisdom Bomb in there. You'll see all of them. I've been doing it since 2019, I believe. Jeremy, what hashtag Wisdom Bomb would you leave with the audience?
This one's from Jack Canfield, and it's E plus R equals O. If you can get this equation, by far, this can change your life. And we were just actually speaking on this. Event plus response equals outcome.
Event plus response equal outcome. I like that. I like that a lot. So thank you for that. And Jeremy, thank you for a great conversation and being on the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So with that being said, how do people find you?
ImpactValueBusiness.com is probably the best place. I'm all over social media as well.
What's your handles on social media?
Impact Value LLC, I believe, is the business coaching, and then just Jeremy Howell.
Jeremy Howell. Okay. And with that being said, to you, the listener, we will make sure that all of that is in the show notes because we want to make it easy for you to not only just connect with our guests, but also to navigate some of the things that we mentioned here in the show today, and also have a written, because some of you guys like to read as well as listen. So make sure that you have that all for your benefit so that you can have the best experience on the show. And with that being said, you have been listening to Grace in the Grind. We're here to share the inspiring stories behind some of the most successful entrepreneurs. And with that being said, make sure you just take a moment and rate and review whatever you're listening to on this, or subscribe if you're on YouTube. We'll talk to you on a next episode.
This has been Grace in the Grind. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Lead with Jim. Take care of yourself. And we'll see you next time on Grace in the Grind.